Shall we dive right into it?
Shall we get started? I think we shall.
That's pretty good. Hello, everyone. We're the Hardcover Hooligans. Miss Mac, are you sleeping? Are you sleeping because nothing happens to the book?
Oh, sorry. I was just so bored. I was sleeping. I was dreaming of a place called Shadesmar.
Mac, I have a question for you.
Yeah, I have an answer for you.
It's actually a difficult moral question.
Yeah, right.
Is killing people bad?
I'm gonna supply a equally boring answer. It depends.
But what if it's justified? It really makes you think, huh?
Yeah, I guess so.
These are the questions that are rattling around. These eternal moral questions are what we're trying to explore here on the world where there's big crabs.
Brandon Sanderson would have been a great Grecian philosopher, I think, because back then when they were just like, the sophists and stuff, that means playwrights.
They could say anything because no one had ever thought anything before.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it'd be on the same level. Like, hey, is killing people bad? Also, what if we had giant swords?
Right.
You'd be like, whoa, that really makes you think.
Wait a minute. You're built for doing killing, but it was killing amoral? Like, whoa.
But unfortunately, there has been 2,500 years of other people thinking about things.
Yeah.
So we're not breaking any new ground here.
Crime and punishment, this is not.
We are... Oh, there's a joke somewhere. It should be called Chawls and Surge Binding.
Yeah, nice.
I don't know. There's something there.
Chawls and Surge Binding.
We are talking Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings, the second half. I want to first start with a slight correction corner. Correction corner. I believe I said Way of Kings was published in 2012 last time. It was published in 2010.
Oh.
So it's been 15 years now.
When was
crazy.
What's the first one called? What's that book called?
Way of Kings Prime?
No. The first Sanderson book, Warbreaker or whatever.
Oh, Elantris? I think
Elantris, yeah. When did Elantris come out?
I don't know. Maybe before the first Mistborn, probably like 2004.
I think it did. Because 2005.
Okay, because the first Mistborn was 2006.
I just don't get... We've talked about this ad nauseum, but like famously, the Stephen King thing of people being impressed by the output, but also people forgetting that a lot of Stephen King is pretty bad, just popular. So I don't. This is exactly the... We were just, before we started recording, we were just talking about
that content creation online.
Yeah, like
that's quantity over
quality. Thank you. That was the phrase I couldn't remember. And it just, there's just so much, and I really think I've been really diving into this wind and... If you don't know anything about anything, if you you're just listening to this episode, you haven't heard us complain about this before. Wind and Truth is the newest Stormlight Archive book,
and it's the fifth book, and it's the scheme of the series that it's 10 books, and the first 5 are like one era, and the next 5 are the second era. So this was like the closing end of like this first big arc he's been writing over the course of the last 15 years.
And people hate it.
Yeah, a lot of people bounced off of it online.
Which is crazy. I think the writing was on the wall with the previous one. I remember that book coming out, and people being like, this is really boring. And then... this new one, I guess it follows... I haven't read it, probably won't ever read it, but I guess it's over the course of 10 days, and each day is tracked and what each character is doing, but it's like so clear that he just needs to like come up with more bullshit to have the characters do to fill the days,
or like things that would happen too fast, but like he decided it's gonna be 10 days, right. So god damn it, it's gonna be 10 days, and you're gonna solve all your problems in 4 days because that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, what do you think is better? Writing, just pumping them out, or you write 5 books of A Song of Ice and Fire and you're gonna die an old man before you not even finish it, but just at least write the 6th one?
I mean, I think now I'm gonna say something. I've watched some of Brandon Sanderson's writing lectures, and
I'm so jealous.
He talks... There's some good stuff in there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he teaches you to write just like him.
Right. Well, obviously, I would never make the claim.
But he knows what he's talking about writing,
you know.
But he talks about, outline writers. All writers are on a continuum between like outliners and like discovery writers who go in with no outline and just like type a lot. And he's a heavy outliner, and it's probably become even more of an outliner because that lets you really follow the formula. And like the issue with discovery writing is that you'll sort of run into dead ends and have to go back and trim. And he used the example that George R. R. Martin is more of that type of writer. The downside of that is we don't get any more books because he didn't plan them out and he doesn't know what to do. The upside is the books that do exist are actually very good because he spent a lot of time on them.
Yeah.
And the opposite is true, is we have 5 Stormlight books. They exist.
Yeah.
Stuff happens.
Also, I wouldn't,
but
if I'm Brandon Sanderson, I wouldn't be so quick to compare myself to George when famously he released the 5th book and then had to like produce a TV show for 13 years of his life. So
anyway, okay, that's a sidetrack, big sidetrack. My second part of the correction corner is I was very indignant about Brandon Sanderson selling the first draft of this book as a leather-bound thing, which seems like a total dick sellout move. I stand by that opinion. However, it is also available for free as a PDF on his website.
Oh, so, but they don't care about that.
But I know, but it's still... that's why my point still stands. You're selling your first draft as leather-bound editions just for the extra cash. Jesus fucking Christ.
I didn't... It's just like on his website?
Yeah, you can download it for free on his website if you wanted to read it.
Oh my god, do you want to take the Knights Radiant quiz?
I've taken it before. when I liked these books.
You can have 50% heart or 50% head. I know what I'm going to choose.
Oh, you said heart. I thought you said a hard.
Hard. Oh, maybe I should get some Brandon Sanderson swag. I've never been on his website before. I'm stalling. I am stalling because this episode needs to be longer than 20 minutes, and I have nothing to say about this.
Well, I have bad Goodreads reviews. I have
okay. I guess we're done.
I have like a big Divergent, so. Or not a big.
We're gonna read Divergent.
No, we're not reading Divergent. I have a big tangent that I want to.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Monologue about at some point, just in general about Brandon Sanderson. Also in, I guess not correction corner, follow-up corner, we were talking about why they don't soul cast the bridges to go across the chasms, why they do the bridgemen. Someone on Reddit actually asked that question, and basically everyone just said because it'd be too expensive. And then some people said like, oh, but then the Parshmen will use the bridges. But then someone else said, well, the Parshendi just jump over it anyway, so it's not like it really matters. So... You know what's also expensive? Slaves and manual labor. Like, I feel like the money you save from not having useful people die, you can just soul cast those bridges.
They are buying. They are buying them, right? They are like they don't. I don't know.
Maybe they're like prisoners. I don't know.
Oh my God, Danilo! Robin Hobb was at Dragonsteel. She was on
Did we say that last time?
Did we? We might have.
I
don't know.
We did.
That would have been great. We're gonna go one day, listener. We're gonna
report from the ground.
I think
Dragonsteel,
cool.
if you don't know, is Brandon Sanderson's big convention.
Which is, I suppose, to his credit, seems to have turned into more of a general fantasy writing convention.
Which is cool. That's cool.
But it's just,
hey, at least they're reading, huh?
No. No. We spent 15 years saying don't yuck people's yum, and now look at the fucking state of the country. No, we have to yuck people's yum.
Or we have to be like, hey, your yum, have some perspective about your yum, please.
Yes,
it's just not.
Yeah,
that's all we need.
Lest we forget, for the long-time listeners, I enjoyed reading Fourth Wing. Would I ever say that book is good or has any merit as a piece of work at all? No, but I enjoyed reading it. So,
and I think it's people conflate enjoying something with it having to be good because I liked it, or we'll get to this later. I think the audience for this skews probably young adult, like maybe late teens, early 20s, and that's like a big time for. I mean, I was like this. A lot of your identity is based on the media and art you consume, because you're trying to sort of figure out what life is about and everything. And I think it's if you read something or experience something and you connect with it in some way, hearing that other people don't, or that maybe it's simplistic that you connected to it the way you did, is, you know, less of an attack on the work and more of an attack on someone's like identity or conception of themselves. And I think that's one of the reasons why people take criticisms of this stuff so personally.
Oh, 1,000%.
Because there is stuff in here like, you know, journey before destination, like sort of generic self-help advice, and like it's not bad advice, and if it's the first time you're hearing it, you can connect with it, you know. But then, you know, to hear other people being like, this is garbage, actually doesn't actually mean that, like,
I'm not invalidating your experience. I'm invalidating, like, literally the way that this story is put together is shitty and boring. And also, this is all just our opinion. Like, I don't know shit from a butt. Like, this is just, I don't know. I think I just narrowly avoided this realm of this kind of fantasy because when I was graduating from like Harry Potter and you know, like kids books to adult books, the first fantasy book I ever read that wasn't The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings was A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. And so like I just didn't pick up one of these. I'm sure if I picked up Mistborn, I would be in a completely different zone than I am now.
And my I sort of, in typical book nerd fashion, I like made the jump from like Redwall and Harry Potter to like real adult literature. Whether like then I was reading like 100 Years of Solitude or whatever. Not to toot my own horn, not that I was getting as much out of it as I would now, but like that was my jump. My like trashy phase was like Agatha Christie detective novels, and I still love, like, that's a great example. Like, I still love a good whodunit.
Oh yeah,
also not under any illusions that it's anything but a puzzle in story form.
Yeah,
and it might have interesting details, but I'm not gonna like defend it and be like it's good actually. I was reading this. I wish I had his name up. He's like a Japanese whodunit writer who was like writing in the 60s and 70s, but he was like sort of writing in that style of the 30s. Here, let me look it up.
Oh, that's fun. That's awesome.
It's awesome, but also like they are sort of repetitive.
Oh, yeah, they're all the same book again and again and again and again. Like they exist now for boomers to read. It's fucking Vince Flynn and James Patterson.
Well, and then there was some quote I was listening to. The reason I found out about it is because I listened to this podcast called Read Japanese Literature. Shouts out. You should listen to that podcast. It's awesome. And they were talking about how the guy, he was like, after World War II, he was writing all these whodunits. And he's like, you know, Japan wouldn't have gotten involved in World War II if people just read more detective novels because it would make them like think better. And I'm like, that's an insane opinion to have. Which is, and it's hilarious, and that doesn't make me like the books any less, but like they're the kind of, you know, this is who's writing them.
I want to tell a personal anecdote here, and give a spoiler for the book we're reading next because it all ties together. So the book we're reading next for the show, at least as of this time I'm saying this out loud, is going to be Watchmen by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. And it'll be cool, and I'm going to try to spin it into maybe a unit on comic books and graphic novels, because I like them a great deal. And also, Superman is coming out later this year, and I've never been more excited for a superhero movie in my whole life, so I'm going to make Danilo read Superman for all seasons, and it's going to be great.
Oh, sure.
Anyway, there was a moment yesterday, my dad loves Watchmen. It's like his whole thing. But when I was a kid, I'll never forget it. The novel with the comedian's smiley face with the blood, it was on our bookshelf, outward facing, and I would always look at it. And I had never been able to read it because they would never let me read it. But when everybody was asleep, I would like leaf through it, obviously. And I didn't really get it, so I wasn't really reading it. And so in preparation for doing this, I was like, maybe I should sit down and really do an analysis of reading it. And there's one section, and we'll get to it, that I just read the other night. I've since finished it, but I started I was seriously crying. There's a moment where, if you've read it or know what I'm talking about, two characters are talking on a different planet and one character makes a grand decision. And I was like, it was like seriously one of the most beautiful, arresting sections in any literature I have ever read. And I just, like, that feeling of, I don't relate to either of these characters because they're like insane superhero people.
Mm-hmm.
But just like the statement that an author can so profoundly make through a character about a theme was so arresting to me that I was just like, wow, this is one of the greatest books, not just graphic novels, books I've ever read. One of the most powerful experiences I've ever read. And people with shit like this claim to have similar experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I would bet money on me showing anybody that section of Watchmen and them having a maybe not as powerful, but a similarly powerful experience. And I cannot imagine you just pick up anybody off the street and show them this, and a similar thing happens. Like, none of those, the complexity of, like, theme or, like, Brandon Sanderson's never talking about anything other than what's going on in the story. And obviously he's trying to, but as we said before, and as I made on a Reddit comment that got 8 upvotes, he doesn't know anything about the world. So, like, how could he make any statements about the world? And in my opinion, the only reason that we read books is to, like, learn about each other better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like...
And part of it is, I think with these books is a huge portion of the audience is, like, Mormon people. And
I guess are there like 25 quadrillion Mormons? Like,
well, I think I think it's a big percentage of, like, probably more conservative Mormons, because, like, this is sanctioned stuff.
I keep forgetting
this is like like, this is okay to read. Like, it's Harry Potter and then it's this.
I don't know,
like,
if they're not reading Watchmen.
Exactly. And, like, it's sort of like, you know, this like level of gray area is, like, maybe as gray as it's allowed to get, you know? Like, it's almost, you know, we talked about this yesterday. It's like, you're not 10, you're 14.
Right.
It's not black and white. It's black and white and gray, you know, which is like, and then the real life is actually more complicated than just 3 options. It's like you went from 2 options to now you have 3 options. And, like, sure, if you only knew there was 2 options, having someone tell you that, like, there's a third way, it's like, whoa. But, you know, if you know that already, it's going to seem horribly simplistic.
Yeah. I just don't. And people claim, you know, Lord of the Rings, when we talked about Lord of the Rings, that Lord of the Rings is like some black and white boring story, which is obviously not true. If you read the books, there's lots of moral gray happening. But even that, a pretty basic, literally fairy tale, like supposed to be a fairy tale, is much more morally interesting than anything that Brandon Sanderson has ever had to say about anything ever.
Mm-hmm. All right. Should we dive into the books?
Yeah, I guess.
That stuff. So, Way of Kings. We're on Roshar. There's storms. Here's our recap. Kaladin, our main character. He's depressed, but he's good at fighting. He's bringing his unit of bridgemen together. Shallan, she's witty. She's trying to steal a soulcaster. The book says she's witty, Mac. She's witty. She's trying to steal a soulcaster from the king's sister so she can pay off her debts or whatever. Dalinar, he's our big buff warrior character. He's having visions, which is causing everyone to call him a pussy. And he's trying to unite the war camps, and he's also trying to learn how to read, which also has everyone calling him a pussy. And his son is like, I gotta fight, I gotta defend your honor, Dad, because you're like learning to read. And we have Seth, who's the warrior in white. He is killing the rulers of the nearby country, and it's cool in fantasy because he has a Z in his name.
It's easy. It's much better to read than to say.
So that's where we're at. If you're still confused, listen to our last episode, or read a summary, or don't.
Or don't. Yeah, who cares?
So Mac, before we dive in, how are you still feeling about the book?
I just don't care. I just don't care about any of this. I don't care about the Stormfather and the Cloud or whatever. I don't care. I don't care that, what is it, Moash dies or somebody. One of them dies. I don't remember. One of the bridge people die. Who cares?
It's supposed to be a big deal.
Yeah.
You can also feel that it's like, okay, I need to take the third most important person, because that person has to die in the first book, because then, like, in the third book, the second most important person dies.
Yeah. Just who cares about any of this? And then I I just don't care. That's how I feel. I don't care. I don't care, and I don't want to talk about it anymore, so let's hurry it up.
Okay. We want to talk about another very goofy thing, safe hands. Mac, do you want to explain what a safe hand is?
I'm going to be totally honest with you. I don't remember.
Okay, so women in
this...
this
that's right. Okay, so
culture,
they have to hide... They, like... I think the first time it's mentioned is with the introduction of Shallan, and she, like, has to have her hand in her dress. There's, like, a special pocket, so they walk around...
Or, like, a long sleeve.
Yeah, they walk around with their hand...
It's their left hand, I think.
It's their left hand. And why is that? Because that's the hand they write with?
I think it's Brandon Sanderson making up a seemingly arbitrary custom to be like, hey, aren't all our customs just sort of arbitrary? Like, that's sort of his point. Like, oh, we all just sort of arbitrarily cover up our bodies based on social rules. So I'm going to just put that in my book that women cover their left hands, and then, like, it's like the way Victorian people used to cover up their ankles.
Right.
And, like, anytime you catch a glimpse of a woman's left hand, it's like, oh, scandal. It's, like, erotic or something. You know?
But
it's trying so hard to be like, why do we all cover up anything when they're not walking around naked, you know?
Yeah, I guess. But it's your hand.
But it's not that interesting because it's, like, your hand.
Yeah. And also, women in this world are the only ones, well, at least in the high strata of society, who can read and write.
Yes, which is moderately interesting in the world.
I guess it's stupid. Like, why? There's no reason.
Because that's just how society is, Mac. We live in a society. Did you know that?
But it's a society that has already been, like, intermixed via gender. Like, it's not as if, like, the military ranks are only men. So, like...
No, they are, right?
No, isn't the female captain the one who buys all the slaves in the first few chapters?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's all men.
Oh. Well, either way, they, like... You should probably have the people on the battlefield be able to read and write the things on the battlefield. That's all I'm saying.
It doesn't matter. It's Brandon Sanderson's take on a patriarchal society, which just, it, like, adds more things, but makes it different, but also... It's just the same.
Also, I'm sorry, Dunny is the one who died, not Moash.
I don't know who that is.
He's just one of the fucking... I think he reminds him of his brother who also died. Which is always happening. Get over it, you fucking coward. You should jump in the honor chasm.
We also have to talk about the book, The Way of Kings. Not this book, but there's an in-text book called The Way of Kings, and it's what Dalinar is reading to be like, we gotta go back to the way things were.
It's like a right-wing how-to manual. It's weird.
I mean, I think that's why a lot of, like, Jordan Peterson guys love this book, because it's like, yeah, we gotta, like, be strong and go to battle. So let's speed through the plot of the second half of this book. If you don't want spoilers, stop listening. That's what I'm gonna say. So Shallan, she has a lot of inane philosophical conversations with Jasna. Oh my god!
And what's his face? The dude she's hanging.
Oh, the monk or whatever. Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about the philosophy stuff later because I'm gonna talk about why this is all in here. And what it's doing. Spoilers. It's nothing and is boring. So Shallan, like, steals the Soulcaster. Finally, she, like, switches it for one, and she's trying to make it work, and it doesn't work. And at some point, as, like, teaching a lesson, Jasna, like, takes her out into, like, a seedy part of town, wearing, like, all their jewelry, and then, like, a bunch of guys come up and, like, are gonna rob them. And Jasna kills them.
She lights them on fire.
Yeah, she like turns them into fire.
Yeah.
And Shallan is horrified and is like, "Is it wrong? Because
my god,
prompted it."
And she's like, so I should. She's like, I should steal it, and because that's morally wrong. And it's like, aren't you stealing it to do, like, a huge lie? And I guess you could be like, yeah, but that's the interesting part. No, but that's not interesting. That's stupid.
Yeah, Shallan is, like, horrified that Jasna killed those men, and Jasna's like, they were gonna, like, beat us and, like, rape us probably. And
what?
And Shallan's like, but you were asking for it because you were out here. And Jasna's
so
like,
weird.
Morality is, who knows?
I'm going to victimize my professor and rob her.
It's like, is it wrong? Like, and Jazz is like, and Shallan's like, but they didn't do anything yet. And Jazz is like, they were going to. It's like a weird, like, self-defense.
It's like Minority Report. It's like pre-crime.
It is. It's like a weird like, I don't know what point you're trying to make. It's like killing people is morally ambiguous.
Also,
which is like,
they are in the
hasn't
act
that been
of
a
doing
theme
something.
in every work of art since the dawn of time?
They're advancing on you to do something. That is the start of doing something. Like, that's not, they didn't do anything yet. They're right there.
In my notes, I have this labeled homeschooled nonsense.
Yeah.
It's very like, I've been homeschooled and I'm thinking about like, is self-defense defensible?
I know. It would have been way more effective if she was like, yeah, there's a known criminal in this area, and he's just like enjoying a meal with like a friend, and she turns that guy into
She'll
fire.
like execute
and she's like,
him. Yeah.
what the hell is that? That accomplishes the same exact thing, except it doesn't have the stupid thing of like, no, they were going to kill you.
Some uncomfortable question about laws and like extrajudicial punishment.
She should become a vigilante
guilt.
like Batman, and that should be what Shallan's chapters are about.
Shallan's playing with the Soulcaster. She's still trying to make it work. She accidentally turns a goblet into blood, and then she like fakes a suicide attempt to like cover it up that she stole it. Shallan heals, and then this monk she's talking to, Cabsel, like comes in and like gives her bread and jam.
And he's like, you should draw a little creepy guy on a piece of paper.
And she eats it. And then like Jasna also eats it, and then
you
they
hear what you're
realize
saying
like
right
it's
now?
been poisoned. What?
Just like, and then they eat some bread and they drink.
That's
some
what
water.
happens.
I know. It's just, who cares?
But then
Wait a minute. Is this before or after she she gets chased by the little ghoul?
Little fuzz thing?
Yeah.
I think it might be after. This is also after the Shadesmar thing, I think.
Yeah.
You wanted to talk about this, right?
Just because I think it's the only thing that in the whole book that is a little bit interesting. She gets she draws a little guy on this little piece of paper, and he like comes off of the paper, and he's like, wah! And she starts chasing her. She freaks the fuck out, and she runs back to her quarters. I think when she comes back from Shadesmar is with the blood and the fake suicide attempt.
Yeah.
She goes to Shadesmar, which I don't know what it is. I only know what it is in the book, but it's essentially another realm made of Spren, right? It's like where they hang out and live.
Everything. So, if you remember to our Mistborn days, I think when we read The Secret History of Mistborn, there's like the 3 different realms of this universe. There's the physical realm, the cognitive realm, and the spiritual realm. Which is, you know what, I will say, in terms of fantasy schema, moderately interesting. So the physical realm is like our world where everything happens. The cognitive realm is like where all our ideas of things live. And so if you're doing magic, the way you transform something into something else is you go into the cognitive realm, which is the Shadesmar thing. It's all made of like black dots, and like full-size Spren live there because they're just ideas of things. And the way you change things to other things is you like go in the cognitive realm and like convince the thoughts of the rock to like, why don't you be bread? And they become bread, sort of. That's
you have to
idea.
do like a Plutonian sort of debate about what is this item, and like what is the essence,
Platonic?
the virtue of it. What is the virtue of a chair? Platonic. What is the virtue of a chair? And it's like the virtue of a chair could be that it's a rock, and he's like, well, okay, and then you turn the chair into a rock.
Yep.
I think that's so cool. And I think it's so cool to just be dropped into that world, because it's the only time where he has a deft hand. She's in this scary world, and you're like, what the hell's going on? And then she's out of the world.
Yeah, and I think that really carries you through it. I remember the first time reading this, like,
that was my favorite part.
That little scene is so striking, and you don't know what's going on, and you're like with her, and she doesn't know what's going on, and with this like whole magic thing, and so like not knowing that carries you to like read through all the boring slog stuff to figure out like, oh, what was that one moment about? And like we said last time, so many of this is like interesting plot point, and then treading water, and you're okay with the treading water because you want to find out what happens next.
Right, which makes a reread impossible because you know what happens next.
Yeah. So, big twist, the Soulcaster that Jasna had was fake. She could actually do that. She actually does magic, and she had a fake Soulcaster to cover that up. and they do some scholarship. Really just action-packed stuff here from Brandon Sanderson. They're reading books. He loves planning, and he loves people doing research.
He does.
Because that's what he knows. Sitting in a library with books, just typing. Write what you know. We have to say something else. So the monk poisoned the bread and the jam. So his plan, because he wanted to poison Jasna because she's like a heretic, and this monk Kabzel belonged to like a secret society that was trying to kill her because she was getting too close to the truth or something. So the way he did it was he knew Jasna didn't like the jam, so he kept bringing bread and jam to them, hoping that Jasna would eat the bread without the jam, because the bread was poisoned, but the jam had the antidote.
Why bring them the antidote?
So that, to cover it up, so that Shallan could eat it and they could eat it. Though I don't know if that's how poisons work. That's like video game poisons. Like if you ate a poison then ate the antidote, like it's not like nothing happens, right?
Also, I feel like they'd be able to. They're like, well, she had the. What's the only difference between the things these two people ate? She had the jam. Okay, that must be the bread that was poisoned. Find the guy who brought the bread. You moron.
Well, they find because he like poisons himself or something. I don't remember what happened.
Oh, it's like a big Princess Bride. Both of the goblets were poisoned.
Yeah. Yep. So that's Shallan's plot. Oh, at the end, after much scholarship, they realize they're like, who were the Voidbringers? It turns out they were the Parshmen. These sedate slave people are actually the old evil force of old.
Yep. What an interesting twist.
I remember you had opinions about this twist the first time you read it, right?
Yeah, which was met very quickly with, no, but actually it's revealed that the Voidbringers aren't evil. And it's like, okay, that might be true, but at the end of this, all I know, and this is all I'm going to read because I didn't like it, is that, like, they're like, the slaves are the bad guys. And it's just like, what?
They were bad, but we enslaved them.
Yeah. That's an insane way to end this section.
And it's like, I know what he's going for.
That's the end of the book. Because we're going through all of Shallan.
He's in, like, his heart's in the right place because he's like, I think what he's trying to go for is like, what an interesting moral quandary they're gonna have to think about their society and civilization. But also, he doesn't up and say that. It's just like, here's a twist. What if the slaves were evil?
Right.
And they deserved it or something. And that's where it leaves you. So you're kind of like,
I would maybe be willing. I'd be willing to engage with, like, obviously that's not what he's saying, and it's deeper. If he had expressed an ability to have nothing be surface level,
right?
Only surface level through the rest of the book.
If he wasn't like 200 pages before this, is killing justified sometimes?
Yeah, I know.
Makes you think.
I know.
It's like not if it's not like, oh, slavery was wrong. He's like, wait, what if maybe slavery was justified?
Right.
So it's weird. It's got all sorts of weird subtext, which I'm sure he's not thought about at all.
No, absolutely not.
We didn't mention this last episode, but in the war camps, there's a subplot with Sidious. He's like the
Let's
Lord.
Just do if we're like of everything happening in whatever the town Shallan is in. We have to talk about Taravangian, right?
Oh, yes. Yep. So he's like the old man king. This is another thing I really liked when I read the books. Me too. The beginning of every chapter, we didn't mention this last time, is like an epigraph, and it's like a random quote.
They're scary.
It's like a random quote from someone's dying last words, like a random person. And you're like, what the hell's going on?
And it's all attributed really cool. To the exact set. It's like 32 seconds after, or like 32 seconds before death on the Alethi plains. It's like, ooh, what's going on?
Yeah, like why are all these people dying and like prophesying before they die, you know? Mm-hmm. And then at the end, we find out that this kindly old man who runs this town is like running a
eugenics lab,
like a eugenics death lab where he keeps people on their deathbed and like kills them and records what they say because it's like they can like glean information for this like whole plan that they have.
Right. And that's how the book ends. That's the last part.
Have you read this next one? We're probably not going to read the next one, are we?
I have no interest in reading Words of Radiance.
I don't really want to read any more of this stuff. Something I liked from the next one that has to do with Taravangian. Did you get this far? It may have been at the end of the second book.
I got like 300 pages into them.
Okay, spoilers for Order of Radiance, everyone. Tune back in like 10 seconds. He like had like he has something with his brain where like every day he's like a different level of like intelligent or like cognitively aware.
Oh.
And so he had like an incredible brain blast like months before, where he like wrote down this whole intriguing plan of like every facet of everything that was going to happen for like the next 10 years, like on a wall, and it's called like The Plan or whatever, and he did it all in like a day. And so now like the dumb version of himself is like trying to follow that, and this is part of that plan for like this master scheme. So he's like following his own master scheme, even though like he's not in a place where he like understands it anymore, which I think is really cool. I totally forgot that happened.
Is he like trying to bring about the end of the world, like be evil guy?
I think so. I think he's trying to like figure out what's going on in this world and become like all powerful. I think also part of it, he doesn't remember what his scheme was. Or what the goal is.
I mean, that's so
fun. I think that's really interesting. Yeah.
But he is an evil bastard. He's like a eugenicist.
Yeah, he's evil. Yeah. And spoilers.
Welcome back. I can't believe Clark Kent showed up in Worlds of Radiance. Wow.
And then the X-Men. Another subplot on the Shattered Plains is this, like, someone would try to assassinate the king by, like, cutting a saddle strap on his horse or whatever. And they have these special horses called Rishadium. They're not like normal horses. They're special. And then you're wondering, like, where do the horses come from if this whole planet is a bunch of crabs? And so this assassination attempt is being investigated by the scummy Bright Lord named Sidious.
Yeah, there's no way he had a hand in this.
And Sidious is like the guy who has all the bridges. So he's like, I don't care what it takes. I'm getting those gems. And so I don't care how many human lives it costs.
Because you see, Adolin and Dalinar use the bridges. They do not. Because that would make them immoral.
Yeah, that'd make them hypocrites.
That would make them hypocrites.
Which, again, in Brandon Sanderson's world, that's the worst thing you can be.
It really is. Hypocrite. It actually is.
Yeah, because that's what we learned in Mistborn.
Yes.
The worst thing you can be is a hypocrite. And there's a little bit of that here, too, where like Jasna's like, you're so smart, but you kill someone even though they haven't done anything yet. Wow.
Wow, you're an evil witch. I'm gonna go have a dream about a landscape.
The overall like worldview really seems to be like, hey, you should live in accordance with your values, but sometimes the world makes it hard, but you should do it anyway.
Yep.
And that's really what Brandon Sanderson is trying to say.
Baby's first philosophy lesson.
So that investigation is happening, and he's also, Sidious is being super scummy and doesn't like Dalinar and is only in it for the money. Anyway, Kaladin, we have the backstory. Do you want to talk about what happens with his backstory?
Yeah, he's like a little boy in this town. He's a member of, he's like the 7th Dawn or whatever. Like there's like this
whatever
whole
level
caste
of
system.
brown eyes.
Yeah. And this guy comes to town and he fucks everything up, and in order to get out of it, Kaladin's like, oh, maybe I'll team up with this guy who won't betray me. And then he does. And that's the whole thing.
And then his like brother gets drafted, and then he does like the Hunger Games of like, oh, I'll go with them.
Yeah.
And he dies, and Kaladin can't forgive himself, and then like the Bright Lord betrays him. And then,
which is the beginning.
What happened? Kaladin like takes down a shard bearer by himself and like could claim the sword, and in the dumbest move of all time says no, because then it's like, then I'll just be just like them. And then the Bright Lord takes the sword and kills everyone and sells them into slavery.
Yep.
So
that's the bit of the beginning of the book that we didn't see, because it jumps to 8 months later. So right after that battle, you gotta live in
accordance with your values, no matter how hard it is. Even if they kill all your friend and sell into slavery, and you could do something good with power that you didn't have before. But as we learned in Mistborn, having power is always bad.
Always bad. No matter what, it's always bad and all corrupting.
Yep. As we learned with Elend. Yeah.
Any power to change anything, you shouldn't change anything. You should do the status quo forever.
Or you should wring your hands about the nature of power so hard, even though you're obviously really good, that you don't do anything.
Yeah. That you give a magic lightsaber to a Nazi and he kills everybody, and you're like, how could I have seen this? No. What happened? It's seriously
I was just trying to live in accordance with my values, and I got fucked by the universe.
This is sort of... people bring this up. The whole backstory thing is like, ooh, I wonder how he was betrayed. And it's just like, oh, he just like betrayed him on like this plane.
He made a dumb decision. Kaladin made a dumb decision.
Yeah.
And is like, the Bright Lord will do the right thing, even though I've always hated them.
Yeah, there's no interesting thing about this at all. And so that's why he gets sold into slavery. And then, yeah.
Yeah. And the rest of Kaladin's plot line is he gets punished for doing that bridge run that saved lives because they were like,
he
did it wrong. He gets left outside in a storm, but good news, he's magic now.
Yeah,
he talks to the Stormfather.
He brings him a
heals
orb or whatever.
Yeah, the spheres, the crystal spheres.
Oh yeah,
the magic in them.
He does talk to the Stormfather.
Yep,
but it's all vague. It's all weird. Who cares?
So it's God basically in the storm. Oh yeah, and then he says, doesn't the Stormfather say like Odium reigns supreme or whatever?
Yeah, so he's a storm.
So we know the bad guy's name's Odium. Then at the end for the final battle, we'll talk about the final battle. Kaladin's huge brain blast idea at the end is to give the bridgemen armor.
And wouldn't you know it works.
What if they used all the shells at the bottom of the chasms to give them a light armor for free? Wow. Who'd have thought? Then less of them would die. Genius. So the final battle happens. I don't quite remember what leads up to it. It doesn't really matter.
But Kaladin and Syl have this whole fucking conversation about whether it's moral to kill or not. Because Kaladin's dad was like, you have to be a doctor, and doctors save people. And Kaladin's like, what if it was a third thing? People who save by killing. And it's like, okay, I guess. Right. Oh, and then they eat rock. The rock is there, and he makes stew, and they eat the stew.
And it brings everyone together even more. Like not only do they male bond by fighting, they also male bond by eating.
And the Rock shows them Stone Cold Steve Austin, his biggest match from WrestleMania 17, where Stone Cold turned heel, and he's talking him through all the spots. So nice that the Rock is here.
So there's a big bridge run at the end.
Yeah, wait, why? Why is this like the biggest one ever?
Oh, because it's like a big battle or something, and it's really far deep in there, and they want to get a gem or something.
Right, they have to they have to do their public event for daily XP.
Right, and Sidious betrays Dalinar and retreats all the bridges and leaves Dalinar's huge force. This is the climax of the book.
Getting circled.
The Sanderlanche, if you will.
Yeah.
Leaves Dalinar and his army stranded with the Parshendi army. But then Kaladin sees that this army is stranded, and him and Bridge 4 go to save them, and they do. And then at the end, Dalinar trades his shard blade for the bridgeman who saved his life, which I think is a very cool moment, where Dalinar's like, name your price, Sidious. I want these guys. They saved my life. And Sidious is like, they're not for sale. And Dalinar's like, oh yeah, what about my legendary big sword that you don't have? And Sidious is like, okay.
Oh yeah, because Sidious has the armor but no shard blade.
Yes. After that, Dalinar has a vision where we reveal that Honor is dead, that he's not been having contemporaneous visions. These are like recording, basically.
Yeah.
Of Honor, a.k.a. God, a.k.a. the Almighty, being like, man, shit sucks, huh? I'm dead, so good luck against Odium.
And then he says that he has to rebuild the Knights Radiant.
Yep.
The echo of God says that the only way out of this is you have to get the Avengers back together again.
Yep. And then the end is that the very, very last part is that thing with Taravangian that we...
Yes.
We did. It's like Seth goes to kill. He's like, the last one on my list is Taravangian, and he goes, and Taravangian is like, he like shows this little stone. He's like, thank you for doing that. It was me that gave you that order.
Yeah.
Now, I hate to do this, but you gotta go kill Dalinar. And everyone's like, oh,
yep.
Seth's going after Dalinar.
And Wit, I think at some point during this, reveals to the reader, I mean, I think he says it out loud, but Kaladin wouldn't care, that he's Hoid, and you as the reader
I forgot,
like, whoa,
I forgot that this happens in The first book.
Yeah.
Like, Brandon Sanderson can't
So
even
did I.
hold on to the reveal that this is the same character from the Mistborn novella until the second book. He's got to do it at the end of the first one. And then he says some dumb shit about, like, stories. Like, stories are only as important as what we tell ourselves. I want to see if I can find it, because it's typical, just like with the in Mistborn, where the guy's like, the real world isn't so great, so I like to listen to stories.
Oh, I hate that. This is not a joke. I think about that guy like once a week. I think about that conversation. I just can't believe that. I forgot. I haven't thought about him for a while. You've just reminded me. It's so beautiful.
He's talking with Kaladin, and Hoyd is like, what you imagine, or what you saw belongs to you. A story doesn't live until it is imagined in someone's mind. And Kaladin says, what does the story mean then? It means what you want it to mean, Hoyd said. The purpose of a storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but to give you questions to think upon. Too often, we forget that.
Yeah, Brandon, you're not doing that. You're not giving anybody questions to think about.
No, but what if maybe killing was sometimes justified? And what if social customs are arbitrary sometimes?
What? I'm getting a brain blast like Teravangian. Whoa. Oh my god.
What if slavery was bad and complicated?
So stupid.
I think this is a great segue. I don't know what else we have to say, but I forgot how much like weird philosophizing is in this. Like, there's so much like Jasna and Shallan talking about like what is right and what is honor, and
Elokar, the king, cut his own saddle.
Was that what happened? I forgot that happened.
He cuts his own saddle to make Dalinar take because Elokar thinks that his life is under threat, and so he fakes an assassination attempt on himself to get Dalinar to take it more seriously.
He's like a teenager, so it's fine.
And then he makes Dalinar the captain of war, whatever, the prince of war. So they're all rising in the ranks before they're just before this final battle. Because it's important to say that Sidious, he didn't betray them in the sense of like going to join the Parshendi. He just like left the battle and stranded them there.
Yeah,
so
like
he's
sort of
still
plausible deniability. Yeah. He's like, oh, these guys are a problem. I'm going to sort of leave them to die.
It's very Prince Regal. He's still part of the...
But there, and then also I love the numbers are so funny, because like there's all this hand wringing about death and killing, but then Brandon Sanderson goes like, or Dalinar is all like, yeah, we lost 5,000 men.
I don't think he knows how many people that is.
Right, no, exactly. It really felt like it's like skimmed over, but also like, I need something to sound big and crazy. Like, that's a lot of people.
Yeah. I'm gonna look up.
It's just so funny to be like, death on an individual scale is so like, morally quandrous, but also like war and all this is like, it's just numbers.
Yeah,
it's just like numbers to elicit some sort of reaction, or like, I don't know.
5,000 people could be just, a rough ballpark for an English field army in France in the 100 Years of War might be somewhere between 7,000 and 15,000 men. That's almost an entire army wiped out on the plains. And I get it's supposed to be
dramatic. He's sort of like, it's bad and dramatic, but also like it's not a big deal and it's like washed over. Like, there's no consideration of like, do we get the bodies? What are the logistics of burying these people? Or like, giving them, like there's no. Again, he made magic things to turn things into bread, so he won't have to think about logistics.
Yeah,
there's supposed to be big swords and big battles, and then a bunch of people die. Oh no. All the philosophical stuff is very like, it's only as interesting as like what the author knows about and thinks about things.
Because that's all he's coming up with all this stuff. Like, Dalinar's not saying this stuff on his own. It's just Brandon.
Right. It's like being witty, or like the opinion about stories. Like, it's just so clearly like, this is not like what the character would think. It's like what the author is like trying to explore or think, or putting words in their character's mouth. I think it's funny. I said this last time, the making Jasna an atheist, or like having all this stuff about like, is killing wrong, or justified sometimes, or in making her an atheist in a world where, like, God is real.
Yeah.
But, like, he's dead, so it's like, whoa,
Right.
isn't everyone sort of right in the end?
Right. It's like, I maybe I just won't say anything about anything at all, and everybody can be right.
It really feels like, reading this, and also, when we read, especially the last book of the first Mistborn trilogy, is that, like, the duality of Brandon Sanderson is he wants to be, like, the rational atheist nerd.
Oh, yeah, but he can't be.
But he also wants to be a Mormon.
Right.
So he's trying to do both.
Yeah. And you literally, you just can't. You can't
Like,
do
you
both.
got to pick a side, But, like, in his world that he makes, he doesn't have to pick a side. Like, he can be God exists, but also God doesn't exist, but also there's magic. So who really knows?
And that's a beautiful thing, really. Do you think
it's wonderful?
Do you think Vin is going to come back in one of these books?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? You don't think he'll do it?
No. I don't know when these are contemporaneous. If this series is contemporaneous with the first Mistborn era, because all the eras are like so.
But they're
linear.
like gods.
I don't know.
So they could just show up.
I don't know.
I bet before the end of
Vin
this...
died.
Yeah, but she becomes... Remember, says it as like, oh, they want to stay in heaven and hang out together.
I think they're in the spiritual realm, and I think you can come back. I think you can't come back from that.
Oh, really? You can't?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, I bet the 10th book of this series is going to be like Avengers Endgame, but 90,000 pages.
I think the closest you can get is Kelsier coming back.
Yeah, that's crazy.
From like he's in the cognitive realm, and he like works on bringing himself back into the physical realm, and I think he's the only person who can do that.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that can be done. Which is sort of interesting as like an idea for your world, I guess.
And poor we didn't get to see him in this, I don't think.
Damn, I know. What else? Oh, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but the magic system is character development. Like, once you sort of see that as like what's happening, it's so boring and dumb.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tie, like, I think Sanderson sort of knows that he has some shortcomings when it comes to like character growth, and that he has strengths when it comes to like making intricate RPG World of Warcraft magic systems. And so he's like, what if I use diagnostic symptoms of depression and I mix it with a magic system that is based on learning lessons about yourself to get more powers, and that's how I make characters. Because at the end of this book, Kaladin swears it's like the first ideal of the Knights Radiant or the second ideal, where he like learns his lesson. He's like, I protect those who can't protect themselves, and then he goes Super Saiyan and grabs and has like more powers now.
Yeah.
But you can't just say it; you have to like mean it.
Yeah,
or you have to learn it in a lesson in your life or something.
And what does Syl reveal herself to be? What is she? She's not a Wind
I think
Spren.
she's an honor Spren. Yeah,
and now she's like an adult woman now.
Yeah.
She can like be normal sized and talk to cat. She's not like weird. She remembers who she is.
Yes.
Well, anyway, that's the story.
That's it. And I wanted to take a this is my little monologue. Potentially, maybe it made this interesting to someone. This whole like not understanding people or like how they think or interact or like societal things. Brandon Sanderson has an article on his website called Outside. I will link it in the description, where he talks about him maybe being neurodivergent in some way, or like how he's always felt like he thinks differently or experiences the world differently. And like he talks about how like he doesn't really experience pain in the same way that other people do, or like big emotional swings. He's like, I've always just sort of felt more or less fine. Mm-hmm. And he's like, writing books and these characters is sort of like how I can feel like I can get into the minds of people more, which is sort of interesting and really tracks, and like, and I sort of identify as a neurodivergent-esque person, so I sort of see, I empathize with this worldview.
Sure.
It's like, I don't understand people, and so I'm like writing it in a way that I think I can understand, but it still results in horribly flat.
Yeah, because you don't understand. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just...
And this is also coming from someone who like I liked this when I read it,
right?
And like I can see the Sanderson's priorities in terms of like the cool plot stuff and the magic stuff and all the characters second. Like, I see a lot of like how I used to think about books and media in this when I was maybe like a teenager or before, where it's like, oh, I didn't really care about the characters because like I sort of felt like odd or different or like, you know, normal people. You know, I was more interested in like the technical magic stuff and the fantasy stuff. The difference is that I don't feel that way anymore, and I'm not like 45.
Right.
So it's an interesting thing. I just don't want to make it seem like we're glossing over this, I think, very real factor of Brandon Sanderson's alleged or potential neurodivergent brain, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that's I think that's an excellent point to make.
But it's also not an excuse for writing bad books where you don't listen to your editor.
It's an explanation.
It's yes. Yep. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Mac, what do you rate this book?
I rate this book a bajillion Mistborns. I mean, this is everything I despise right here in one place.
I rated 0.5 Mistborns. I think it is if you don't know what's going to happen, it is fine and maybe even fun for some people. Clearly, a lot of people like this.
Yeah.
So, I will not while not budging on my opinions, I will give it 0.5 Mistborns.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Do you want to hear some 1-star Goodreads reviews?
Yes, I do, because these are our people, I think, or I would hope.
It is very satisfying to read some of these reviews and hear exactly some of the things that we've been saying.
I'm so excited.
So I'm not going to read all of them. There's some of them that are really short. Some of them I'll just read sections of.
Sure. Just to get a general vibe of the...
Yeah, the vibe is people think it's boring and dumb.
Good, me too.
And it's crazy that everyone likes this so much. So this is from Madeline. I'm going to read this. This is one of the whole ones where I'm going to read the whole thing because I think it's interesting. She writes, if you have to read The Way of Kings, which you shouldn't do, but if you have to because your dad gave it to you and he's your dad.
Oh, so this happened. So this happened to just right off the bat. Seems to be what happened to Matt.
I recommend you do so while a little bit drunk. It makes this book a lot more fun. For example, when passages like this occur. She stared eastward, her expression horrified, eyes wide and sorrowful. It was the face of a child watching a brutal murder that stole her innocence. Well, I'd much rather read that sort of thing while slightly drunk. And later on, she writes, The Way of Kings isn't entirely unsalvageable either. Part of the reason it's so bad, perhaps even the primary reason, is because Sanderson doesn't seem to know what is important. The world building seems to get a lot of praise in review, but reading the book, it seems more like he'd rather be a video game or computer game writer or designer than a novel writer. There's a distinct World of Warcraft feel to this book, and the world has a lot of gimmicks, and the plot has really no forward momentum. It's just everyone is bouncing around until they reach the next level. I'm just saying, when you find yourself writing about anticipation Spren, that is a red flag. There's more to that review, but I thought that was very funny because we said the exact same thing, and you brought up World of Warcraft.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is so vindicating.
Yep. I'm also going to read a big chunk of this one.
Yeah.
This is from SK, 1 star. This is your guy? This is your king? Your favorite author? Anger Spren float up from the ground around me as I write this review. This book is like if a colorblind child made a finger painting, using the whole wall as his canvas. Oh, you tell the child, that's very ... expansive, isn't it? And the child gurgles something inarticulate, and you laugh and pretend it was insightful commentary. I often wondered how Sanderson appeared to be publishing hefty books every few months, but I wonder no longer. He clearly doesn't think about a sentence longer than the amount of time it takes to type it out. No thought is put into description, into the craft of writing, into weaving complex ideas together in a semi-elegant way. The process here is strictly additive. More countries, more customs, more systems, more ridiculous magic to fill up plot holes. I shit you not, rather than consider the logistics of large-scale long-term war campaigning, food and supplies are magicked into existence by soulcasters. It's all utterly shallow and stunningly juvenile. Sweet food is for girls, and spicy food is for boys. Money is different colors. Wine is different colors. These people live near water, so their metaphors are fish adjacent. Poor people use contractions when they speak to indicate that they are dumb and poor. And that is all I'm going to read about that review, but it's pretty funny. Oh, I'll actually read the last paragraph of that one. They write, normally I wouldn't give a fuck. Mediocre fantasy is a dime a dozen, but this guy is revered as the fantasy writer of our age when his work is a tedious, corny pastiche of greater talents. Slimy men in Marvel t-shirts press this brick into my hands, insisting it's real fantasy and everything else is trite girl stuff that, no, you have to wait until book 16 in the Cosmic Universe when it gets really good. That 900 pages of exposition is worth it for a dismal climax in which our main character, Mary Sue, goes Super Saiyan.
Yep, that's exactly what happens.
Yep. Andrew writes, the way of kings is tedium defined. No one has wit, even a character named Wit, who the narrator tells us incessantly is witty. Everyone has the same emotional sophistication, that of an obnoxious sixth grader. Jake Lee writes, 1 star, Ian Malcolm to Brandon Sanderson. I tell you the problem with the writing here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You read what others have done and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourself, so therefore you don't take any responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox. And now you're selling it. You were so preoccupied whether or not you could, you didn't stop to think if you should.
Wow, shuts out. It really is the
good?
Jurassic Park of fantasy novels. That's awesome.
Catlin says, my disappointment is proportional to the length of this book. Joanne writes, every few years I attempt a fantasy book to remind myself why not to bother. This was a great success.
Yeah, I know. I promise they can be good.
Mary says, disappointed Spren.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, very good.
And you know what, listener? I'll say it. I know we only get reviews that we agree with, but I don't care. This is our podcast.
Yeah, I know.
And then when we do like the book, we do the reviews, and all we do is disagree with them. So
yep. And if you don't like that, get the fuck out.
Leave us a 1-star review. I don't care. It helps our metrics anyway. My final take on all this, that I really felt this time, that like, having gone from Robin Hobb, Farseer trilogy to this, is that fantasy is just one of those genres where like it's a really fine line.
Yes.
And like it's either really good or it's really bad. And there's like a fine line between the stuff that makes it good and the stuff that makes it like a parody of itself. And it's hard to feel, as a big fantasy fan, it's hard to feel empathy for when like people who really are into fantasy are like, but why isn't fantasy taken more seriously as like literature? And then like this is the stuff they want to like be taken more seriously. And that's like, of course it's not taken more seriously. I think for the most part, this stuff is like on the other side of that line where, you know, you go a little, there's something in here somewhere, but unfortunately the writing doesn't bring it out.
Right.
At least for me.
Wow, that was very eloquently put. I agree wholeheartedly.
Thanks.
What a shit show.
And this is the best, most refined one, which is crazy.
Yes, it is.
And it's islands of things that are interesting among a sea of tedium.
Oh, just like Shadesmar.
Islands of intrigue in a sea of tedium.
Yes, islands of intrigue in a sea of tedium. But even then, they are tiny, uninhabited islands.
Yes.
Almost unworthy of note, other than they are on a map that breaks up the tedium.
Yeah, they make you go, oh. And then that's about it. Yeah. All right, do you have anything else to say about The Way of Kings? I sort of think we've agreed. We said we were going to read all of these, but
I can't.
I don't want to read all. It's going to
can't.
take 3 months. I can't do it. We're going to keep saying the same thing over and over again with different plot beats.
Yeah, and I just have no interest in doing that.
I will. Oh, maybe I didn't plan on doing this. I know I asked you for your last thoughts. I think maybe I can go through and, based on what I remember from each book, tell you what I think about them.
Oh yeah.
But if you want to give your last thoughts on The Way of Kings, go ahead. I know I asked you that, and then I went on a...
No, you're fine. I have no last thoughts. This was terrible, and it was a complete waste of time. You can go ahead. I'd much rather hear what you have to say.
Great. Words of Radiance, I think I said earlier what I like best about it. The rest of it is Shallan slowly developing split personality disorder. And then eventually there's...
And I bet that's handled with a deft touch. I'm sure. I'm positive that's handled with a deft touch.
He wrote it, I believe, got criticism, and then talked to more people and added more things to make it more nuanced in later books. The big major downside is you get 3 Shallans instead of just 1, which is its own brand of hell.
Right.
And even the people who like these books, generally do not like that, because she has like a noble personality, and then like a bandit personality, and then she has her normal self,
right? And
they all like converse, and she like in her head. She also marries Adeline at some point. I don't know if that happened in the 3rd book. I think there's some plot reveals. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Oathbringer, I really liked that one. I think some people don't like that one because that's Dalinar's POV, and he has like a horribly traumatic past where he like accidentally kills his wife and then like memory wipes himself. That's why in this book, when he like mentions her name, it's like a fuzz, or if anyone mentions her name, it's like a fuzz. So like later it's revealed that he in his like war rage like accidentally causes some events that leads to his wife dying, and he like makes a deal with a deity to like wipe his brain of it, basically. And that's my takeaway from that one. He has a showdown with Odium, and he's like, hey, I'm not gonna let you Dalinar. And like Odium's like, hey, I'll take your pain from you, and Dalinar's like, I won't let you have my pain, it's what makes me who I am. And that is viewed as a big badass thing that happens, and like, whoa, and people crying from Dalinar going, you can't have my pain, in all caps, no less, I believe.
Of course,
because that's how you know he really means it, when it's all caps ! The 4th book is very boring. There's reams of Navani, who is Dalinar's like the old king's wife, who then gets with Dalinar. She's doing like fake magic science the whole time. It's like with light and sound and getting gems to go in light and sound. And it's very clear that Brandon Sanderson has some idea for this. But
it's not revealed in the book. It's just somebody doing science.
It's like the tedium. It's like if someone invented biology and then wrote about someone working in a lab on like mitochondria.
Cool.
They're trying to discover something about mitochondria. Wow. Like, it's literally, she's all like, I don't know if I can do science, but then she like does science with this made up magic thing. And it very feels like you made this up. Like, you made something up, and then the other person you made up is doing made up science about this made up thing. And it's like, what are we doing here? And so half the book is that. And then the other half of the 4th book is Kaladin being depressed in like a Die Hard situation, because like their big good guy base is taken over by the bad guys.
And who are the bad guys?
The Parshendi.
Oh, I see.
So eventually the Parshmen are revealed to be that like slave form is like a sedate form of them, and they like change their forms based on different things. Like there's mating form and warrior form. Like that's like what their fantasy race does. And so they eventually start a war with the humans, and a bunch of them transform because there's another storm. There's like the evil storm that now sweeps the country.
Cool.
And every time the evil storm sweeps, like that's when the Parshendi can like change their form. And so it's basically like a big slave uprising. And
which
then
is a good thing, right? But they're evil.
Yeah, but then it's revealed that actually humans aren't native to this planet. They're the invading force. And the Parshendi are like the natives of this planet, which is sort of interesting. Crazy that it's like that's the 4th book reveal.
Yeah.
Or even 3rd book, I don't remember. But there was an interesting when we were going through our Mistborn
Odyssey.
Crisis.
Yeah.
Crisis. I found an interesting paper where someone, not paper, but like article where someone tracked like Stormlight Archive, like this whole relationship with like the Parshendi or the natives of this planet and the people, the original people are an invading force. And now they settled with like the whole Mormon relationship with the Native Americans.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't know if Brandon Sanderson put in here on purpose. Like, there's like that's a direct reflection of like things that he would know or be super familiar with, which is interesting. I'll link that below if I find it.
Yeah.
Again.
Wow.
So it's weird that this turns out to be like a Mormon allegory, and it's sort of like, well, you know, the people who did this, who invaded and took you over are gone now, and we didn't do that, and we're both here, so I guess we have to find some way to coexist, huh?
Yeah.
And that's what happened in Utah. So here it is on Roshar.
Fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. Although a big part of the fourth book was like Die Hard is because Kaladin is trapped in this tower. The bad guys take over the good guy tower, and he's trapped in the tower, like going through mineshaft and passages trying to sabotage them.
I mean, that sounds pretty cool. Fantasy Die Hard.
Yeah, but he's depressed the whole like he's not. It's like he's always
fun.
Injured, and it lasts 1,000 pages.
Right.
Like it could be fun, but it's boring.
Yeah. What's this thing I keep seeing online where Adolin and Kaladin have like this battle together that people think is really sick?
Well, because they're like frenemies. Like it's like the meme is like Kaladin's like the goth kid and Adolin's like the golden retriever fiance.
Yeah,
and they like Kaladin, Adolin, and Shallan are all like hanging out together all the time. And Shallan's like, he's handsome, but he's moody. But it's like the softest will they won't they ever, because she's like married to Adolin. I don't know. It's weird. And Adolin's all like, cheer up, bud. But I'm here for you.
Right. But he's
It's also very, if you've read Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov and his friend, who's like always super happy and supportive.
Oh, that's
very
a good,
that dynamic.
Yeah, except worse.
Yeah, except not interesting. Yeah, and so that's all I know about the Stormlight Archive. And I know Wind and Truth has a bunch of like poop jokes and butt jokes and fart jokes that everyone hates. Other than that, I don't know what happens. I think
awesome.
Again, Wind and Truth spoilers. I don't know. I was looking. I don't care about spoilers. I think Dalinar dies at the end or something.
Whoa!
But who cares? Yeah.
Who's gonna unite them?
Maybe the unite them was the friends we made along the way.
And with that, I think that's a perfect ending.
And that is, I don't know if we will ever read another thing with Brandon Sanderson again for this podcast. So I think I have said all I have to say
I think
about
so too.
This guy.
Barring some huge, like, shift in writing, I don't think I ever.
And if you're like, why aren't they talking more about his Mormonism or like about the famous Reddit AMA? We did that already. Go back to the beginning and listen to our Mistborn podcast.
Yeah.
We got 8 hours of us derealizing in real time about this stuff, especially because I started and I like these books, and now I don't. So
yeah, you've seen the light.
All right, that's our show. If you liked the show, we got great feedback on the last one. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
It's great to see and hear. We received some fan mail. Thank you from... I want to make sure I get your name right. I'm not going to dox you. I just want to call it out. From Nardos. Thank you, Nardos, for the very kind fan mail. Our fan mail folder has 2 emails.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Hey, folks, let's get that up to 3, huh? Let's get that up to 3. I'll respond.
Or hate mail. Whatever.
Really anything.
You can send hate mail.
No such thing as bad publicity. What else? Yes, so if you want to leave us a review, please do so on Apple Podcasts or your podcast player of choice. Leave us a comment on our YouTube channel where we just publish the audio of these podcasts for the people who listen on YouTube. If you want to email us, you can email us at hardcoverhooligans@gmail.com. We love hearing from all of you. Anything else? Oh, as Max said earlier, our next book will be Watchmen.
Yes, we're going to do Watchmen next. So if you're
reading
Watchmen,
the whole thing?
I believe so. I think we could split it up, but I think that'd be weird because all the reveals are sort of the end point of all the themes, and it's sort of hard to talk about all the themes without knowing the end.
My experience with Watchmen is I have seen the Zack Snyder movie. That's Zack Snyder, right?
It sure is.
And I liked it. And then I watched the HBO show. And that was very good. Even though I know that has nothing to do with the...
No, it's a sequel.
It sort of does.
It's a sequel.
Yeah.
It is based on how the book ends. So after reading the graphic novel, it will make more sense why it rains squid sometimes than me watching TV show.
I think I sort of remembered from watching the Zack Snyder movie. Like,
there's no squid in the Zack Snyder movie. The ending is very different, and I can't wait to talk about it because Zack Snyder's Watchmen ending is stupid and makes no sense when you know the ending of the graphic novel.
I think I watched it in high school, and like I had already been, in early college, I think, and I already had been off the like Marvel superhero train.
Sure,
it was sort of I was just sort of not interested in it anymore, and this I watched and was like, oh. Yeah, superheroes can be interesting.
Yeah,
and that's why I'd always liked X-Men. That was always my favorite thing because it had like more moral complexity.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, I think you'll really enjoy the Watchmen graphic novel.
I hope so. I'm not usually a graphic novel guy, but
yeah. Oh, I think this will.
I'm gonna read it.
Yeah, I think it would be fun to do the big famous ones that are considered also literature. So I'm thinking Dark Knight Returns because that's a big famous good graphic novel, and I don't know. We'll see. So we'll see what else. We'll get all Frank Miller. Maybe we'll read Swamp Thing because that's also really good.
Oh,
and considered to be, I believe, Watchmen, New York, the New Yorker, maybe it was the New York Times, maybe it was Times, ranked it in the top 50 greatest English language books ever written.
Oh, cool.
So, and then I can't wait for you to hate it after I've blown it up like this.
No, I'm gonna I get it. I'll probably like it.
Yeah, so if you're reading along with us, read the entirety of Watchmen. It shouldn't take that long. It took me like 4 days.
Yeah, and maybe we'll read like something horror related after that.
That would
we haven't done like a horror related thing in a while, or sci-fi. Like when's the last time we did sci-fi?
I know. Who knows? We'll talk. We'll get back to you.
We'll let you know.
Hardheads.
In the meantime, have fun reading. Have fun listening. Thank you all for your support. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Someone tell Brandon Sanderson. Please don't. But
or do. And we can be on the show.
All right. That's it.
Stay hard.
Stay hard, everyone. Hard like Roshar because it's made of rock.
Stay Roshard, everybody.